Let's go ahead and get started. So we have a special day today, and that is because today is actually a national holiday. So today is a day that we call Patriots Day, and it is a holiday that remembers, or a word that we use called memorializes, an event that happened in our country's history, okay? So we're going to take a couple minutes to watch a short video that's going to explain the content of why we celebrate Patriots Day and why we take time out of this day every year to remember certain people, okay? I would like to tell you that this video is pretty serious and it's pretty heavy, okay? There's some content inside of here that can make you have strong emotions, and I want to let you know that those strong emotions are okay to feel. We'll take some time afterwards to process these emotions and to see how we're feeling and to talk about them honestly, okay? I do want to encourage you that even though there are going to be some images that you see that you might think are cool, I want to remind you that this is not Hollywood. This is not a movie that was fake. These are things that actually happened. So I want to make sure that we take time to be respectful, okay? So this comes from Brain Pop, not Brain Pop Jr., but Brain Pop, and it's going to explain what happened in our country's history a little less than 20 years ago, I think it is, or a little over 20 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to play this, and then we will take some time when we are done to talk about it. There we go. Here it is. Okay. I just figured out how to move my Zoom controls. All right, so again, this has some heavy content. It explores a sensitive subject, and you're watching it with an adult, and we're going to take some time to discuss when we're done. Okay, please focus.
I think this is it.
We can't hear.
Guys, the beginning of it is silent because it's the warning about it being serious. The sound is on.
I think this is it. Dear Tim and Moby, I know that the Twin Towers fell on 9/11, but why would someone do that? From Tiffany. This is a tough one. Maybe we should go over what happened first. The morning of September 11th, 2001 started off as your average Tuesday. People went to work, kids went to school, and everyone pretty much went about their business as usual. At 8:46 a.m., though, everything changed. At that moment, an airplane full of passengers flew into one of the Twin Towers. Those were the two tallest structures of the World Trade Center in downtown New York City. All the people on the plane were killed, and so were many people in the building. I know. Then, about 20 minutes later, a second plane flew into the other tower. It was then that people started to realize that this was no accident. It was an attack. It was clear that the planes had been hijacked or forcefully taken over. Shortly after that, there was another plane crash, but this time it was at the Pentagon, right outside Washington, D.C. The Pentagon is the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense. Next, the unthinkable happened. Back in New York, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. It was a devastating blow. Debris flew everywhere, and all of downtown Manhattan was covered in a cloud of dust and smoke. Fortunately, most people were able to get out of the tower before it fell. But many others, including firefighters and police officers who had gone in to help, were trapped and killed. Well, the building had actually been designed to handle small crashes, but nothing like this. The fuel from the airplane ignited an enormous fire that destroyed the skyscraper's internal structure. It was the same problem at the North Tower, and at 10:28 a.m. it too collapsed. Hundreds of people lost their lives in an instant. Around the time of the South Tower's collapse, another plane crashed in an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. This fourth hijacked plane was most likely intended to hit another building, but evidence suggests that passengers took the airplane over from the hijackers, causing it to crash. There were no survivors. Yeah, all told, 3,000 civilians lost their lives that day. It was the worst attack on U.S. soil since the bombing of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in 1941. Right, so let's talk a little bit about why all this happened. Hijacking a plane is a form of terrorism. That's an act of violence designed to spread fear in others and attract attention to a political cause. The September 11th attacks were carried out by 19 members of a terrorist network called Al-Qaeda. It wants to rid the Muslim world of Western ideas, especially anything from the United States. 9/11 was meant to scare the U.S. into withdrawing support for certain governments in the Middle East. Al-Qaeda would promote revolutions in these nations, then set up religious governments friendly to their organization. And that brings us to Al-Qaeda's larger goal, to hijack Islam itself. They would like the world to believe that they're acting on the religion's behalf, which is ridiculous when you think about it, at all. Islam is a major world religion made up of nearly 2 billion people. It's not represented by a criminal organization. Good question. You might have heard that a guy named Osama bin Laden was responsible for the events on 9/11. Osama bin Laden was the head of the Al-Qaeda network. He didn't personally take part in the attacks, but as Al-Qaeda's leader, bin Laden helped plan and carry the whole thing out. Well, the United States responded to 9/11 by invading Afghanistan, a country that was harboring Al-Qaeda members. Much of Al-Qaeda's organization was destroyed, and certain key leaders were killed. After nearly a decade in hiding, Osama bin Laden was eventually found and killed by the U.S. government. But even as Al-Qaeda has been weakened, other terrorist groups have sprung up in their place. Back home, it's been hard to rebuild. Many lives were shattered in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, but families, friends, and complete strangers pulled together to help out relatives and friends of the victims, both on the day of the attacks and in the weeks and months that followed. Within a year, all physical damage to the Pentagon was repaired. It's been a much tougher rebuilding process here in New York, but things are looking up. By 2012, the new World Trade Center became the tallest building in New York. I couldn't agree more.
All right. So let's take some time to talk about this moment in our nation's history. I know that there was some content in there that might inspire some emotional reactions, and that's okay. Does anyone have something that they would like to share or something that they would like to say? Levin?
There was another plane crash that I heard about. They tried crashing into a pyramid. They had a bomb on the body to keep everybody still.
Yeah, so that
Something.
was connected to the day. There was some conversations about that as well. Yes. Aiden G?
That people were trying to get out of that building, and some people escaped and some people didn't, and some people had to carry the people out because they couldn't breathe.
Yeah. So there's two really important lessons that we can learn from this, right? The first is that many people on this day acted very bravely. So many people saw that there was danger, saw that there were people that were in need, and they went to help those people. So we saw a lot of teamwork with people that looked so different, that believed so many different things, that had so many different thoughts, and they all worked together to help keep as many people safe as they could. So this moment in our history, while extremely terrible and very heartbreaking, was also very inspiring because we saw our country come together and we saw our country begin to defend itself and believe that we should all be helped and we should all look out for each other. Yes, thank you for sharing that. Terrence?
Why didn't they go get more people since they found the leader and they just put them in jail so they couldn't ever get out again?
Sure.
Because it caused more people.
So that is something that we are still dealing with all over the world. So all over the world, there are people, it's not just in other countries, there's people in America as well that have a desire to cause pain, that have a desire to make people hurt. And we have to make sure that we are able to not allow that hate to take root in our heart. So when we take time to remember moments like September 11th and what happened, even though it was 19 years ago before you guys were alive, when we take time to remember that, it helps us to keep our hearts softened, and it helps us to recognize that's not right. And it lets us guard against that type of hate coming up in our heart. So it's very important that we take time to memorialize that. More thoughts? Levin?
Were you born at the time?
I was. So on September 11th, 2001 is when this happened, and I was in the 5th grade. I actually went to Sunnyside Elementary, which is right here in Lawrence Township, and I was just getting to school for the day. So I was walking into my classroom, and my teacher had the news on the television, and we watched on the news what happened. And my teacher was really awesome because just like you guys might have a lot of questions and confusion and maybe even some fear, that was happening with me as well. And my teacher was able to talk with me about how we have to guard our hearts against hate coming in, and was also able to help make sure that I felt safe and that I was able to have an understanding at the time of what was going on. But yes, I was alive. I was in the 5th grade. Anton.
My cousins are coming from Chicago.
What about Chicago?
My cousins are coming.
Oh, your cousin was in Chicago when this happened? So you've had family conversations about this before. Okay. Terrence?
My dad said he was at college and
So
he watched it on TV.
yeah. So if you were alive on September 11th, there's a really big phenomenon that everybody remembers exactly where they were, because this was a moment that was so shocking and so full of surprise that it kind of gets etched into your memory. So yeah, if you were to ask your adults about this at home, I bet they would be able to tell you exactly where they were when this happened. Colton?
My mom was in the hospital getting eye surgery when that happened.
Wow, so she remembers where she was as well. Yep, so this shows you how important it is when people can remember exactly where they were when a moment took place. Leah?
My mother was in college when it happened, and she watched it on the TV, the news.
So she is kind of in the same age as Terrence's dad and remembers that same experience. Yep. So there's 2 questions that I want to make sure we understand today. The first question is, why are we watching this? Why do we need to know this, right? We're not watching this to feel scared. We're not watching this to feel sad. We're not watching this to feel angry at people who did this, right? We're watching this for 2 reasons. The first reason is to show honor and respect to, 1, the people who died that day, and also to the people who decided to help that day. Many firefighters, police officers, nurses, doctors, EMTs, even civilians, regular people who like have a job like a teacher or that work at a store or something like that, came in to help that day. And we want to show respect to all of these people. The second reason that we watch this is to remember that we can work together, and to remember that even though there are items that we disagree on or things that we see differently, we know that human life needs to be respected. And we know that we need to make sure that we're looking out for each other and that we're helping to keep each other in safe environments. And that when things go wrong, we work together. We don't point fingers and blame, but we figure out how to come to that solution, okay? So I don't want you to walk away from this feeling afraid. We have many systems in place that help protect us from this. We also are more aware now. So we have people that are looking for events like this. So it's not to feel afraid, but it's to show respect and take a moment to remember. And it's also to remember that we are a team and that we can work together, and that there are moments that will cause us to put our differences aside and rise up, okay? Closing thoughts on this. Anton?
My grandma was on the first floor on that day.
Your friend was what?
My grandma was on
Was
the floor in the 10 tower.
she was in the
And
war?
she was on the first floor in the twin tower, and she survived.
Wow, so you have a family member who was there that day. That's very interesting. Maybe on Seesaw you could see if she would do an interview, and then we could share that and we could hear about her experience. That would be really cool. Colton? Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, what does hijack mean?
So hijack means to take over something that doesn't belong to you. So a hijack is usually used to describe something like a car or a plane or something that helps you travel. And it's basically when someone tries to steal it and drive it to where they want it to go. That's what that means. Any other closing thoughts? Okay, so if you hear some conversation today, maybe on the news, or you see something or hear a conversation about remembering this day, this is what it's about. And it's just a good thing to remember to honor people, one that died, and two, people that came together to help. And it's a good idea to remember that there are moments that can cause us to rise up and to work together as a team. Okay, Anton, I see that you think you got it working back. You there?
What made the plane fall down?
They were just planes like what you would see at an airport that take people to different locations. So it wasn't a military plane. It wasn't a tiny plane owned by one person, but it was like a company plane that helps people travel. Okay. All right. To close us out on this conversation, I have a short book that we're going to watch. And this was a great book that was written in response to the events on September 11th. And this book is called September 12th, The Day We Knew Everything Would Be All Right. So this is very similar to what my experience was, because I was in elementary school when this happened, like I shared with you. So this is how we knew everything was going to be all right. This was actually written and illustrated by first grade students in an elementary school in Missouri. And these students recognized that even though certain people wanted to make this a terrible thing and wanted to really hurt American people, this caused people to see a bright side, and that we knew we could work together. So this is how we'll close out on this conversation, and then we'll move into our reading.
September 12th. We knew everything would be all right. Written and illustrated by first grade students of H. Byron Masterson Elementary in Kennett, Missouri. On September 11th, 2001, many bad things happened. September 12th was a new day. We knew everything would be all right. Because the sun came up, and the birds started to sing again. We came to school the same way. We knew everything would be all right when we saw our teacher smiling at the door. We said the pledge, like always. We sang the national anthem very loudly. Our teacher sat and read us lots of good books. We had recess again. We knew everything would be all right because we had homework. 2 plus 2 still added up to 4. Our thought for the day became America United. We saw lots of flags. Red, white, and blue suddenly became everyone's favorite colors. On television, we heard our president tell us everything would be all right. On September 12th, our parents still tucked us in our warm, safe beds. Our parents talked to us about the bad things that had happened the day before. We knew we would be all right because our parents said they loved us. We knew everything would be all right because the stars and moon came out and America went to sleep. And the next morning, the sun came up again. Not the end.
Okay, so as you are moving through life, there will be events that will be very difficult. They might be events in your personal life. They might be events in the country. They might be events for your whole family. But this is a great reminder that the next day is always going to come and that you can always find something there that's going to be able to help you smile. It's going to be able to help you know it's going to be okay no matter how big this feels right now, okay? So I want us to make sure that we remember that when we face difficult situations, 1, we can rely on our team members around us, and 2, we're always going to be able to press forward to that next day, okay? All right.